Number 10. Chevy Chase. Chevy Chase, a popular man thanks to National Lampoon and Saturday Night Live, but he returned to the mainstream when he starred as Pierce Hawthorne in the hit sitcom Community. I genuinely love this show. Chevy? Not so much, and it would appear that his Community co-stars would agree with that statement. Around the middle of the show's runtime, Chevy started to complain about his co-stars, especially Mr. Glover. It became apparent that he was more than just angry with Donald, and it was eventually fired for using racial slurs against him. According to himself, aka Troy Barnes, Chevy would often make inappropriate jokes either aimed at him or as a general way to disrupt a scene. Joel McHale told People that before he was fired, Chevy was complaining about his character on the show and how he was being portrayed. The entire cast reminded him that there was no contract keeping him there, which may have been part of what set him off on set. His character was written out in truly humiliating fashion, with his life ending after feeding his geese way too much, if you know what I mean. He was playing with them. Number 9. Tom Hardy. Mad Max Fury Road is a forgotten gem in cinema history. It featured little to no CGI despite having some awesome visuals, and it featured some pretty cool performances from its cast like Nicholas Hoult, Charlize Theron, and Tom Hardy. Charlize and Tom played the main characters, Furiosa and Max, and while their on-screen characters end up working together in the end, on set, it was a very different vibe. Tom had a bad habit of showing up late all the time, meanwhile Charlize was a brand new mother who would be there on time every day while their kids were forced to be taken care of by someone else. In a book called Red, Sweat, and Chrome, The Wild and True Story of Mad Max Fury Road, the writer Kyle Buchanan shared an instance on set between Charlize and Tom. Everyone was on set 8 a.m. ready to shoot except for Mr. Hardy, but at that point Charlize took her place and stayed there until Tom showed up 3 hours later. Now she didn't move a muscle, and according to the crew she was beyond furious. When Tom finally showed up, she asked him how he could be so disrespectful and said that they should fine this See You Next Tuesday $100,000 for every minute that he held up the crew. She didn't say see you next Tuesday. I really wish I could say the word that did set him off. The word she did say set Tom off, and he rushed up to her and pulled out the whole "what did you just say to me" type thing. Yeah, he didn't say it like that. He's a big tough guy. Oh, big tough, I can't hear so good. Overall, Charlize felt pretty threatened by Tom on set and had an assistant follow her around as a buffer between them. When the shoot wrapped, the tension was gone and things seemed to have gotten better, but the difficult shoot combined with the stress is probably why Tom Hardy was never brought back for a Mad Max 2. Number 8. Jeremy Piven. Best known for his role as the timekeeper in Spy Kids 4D, All the Time in the World, and nothing else, unfortunately has an overall rough reputation in the world of Hollywood, mainly being pegged as a very difficult man to work with. Several of his co-stars over the years have called out his wild behavior. When Kim Kardashian made a cameo appearance on some indie show called Entourage, I don't know, I've never heard of it, he was very pushy towards her, trying to get her contact information. Several past girlfriends and co-stars like January Jones, Kelly Brook, and Rachel Hunter have all agreed that this guy plays the numbers game. He'll go out and get as many phone numbers as he can so that at the end of the night he can just text all of them at once and see who responds first. The most troubling incident came when he made a guest appearance on the sitcom Will and Grace, playing Grace's ex-boyfriend. Deborah Messing, who plays Grace, recalled to Andy Cohen, Watch What Happens Live, that her experience with Piven was just plain gross. She claims to have locked lips with a lot of boys in her time on stage and screen, and on the first day of rehearsals Jeremy tried to get French with her, claiming that he tried to shove his tongue down to her heart. She told him to take it easy, but apparently he refused. Not a cool move at all, and very gross indeed. This man is so mean and self-centered that he once tipped a waiter with a DVD of The Entourage. Seriously, what? Is it like a late night cable television show or something? Ooh. I'm just kidding, I know what The Entourage is. Number 7. Mike Myers. Yeah, baby, it's very shagadelic that Mike's on this list. Despite being a Canadian treasure and the man behind some comedy cult classics like Austin Powers and Wayne's World, this guy's actually apparently a menace on set. According to his Cat in the Hat co-star Amy Hill, Mike had handlers dress his entire trailer, and his work area was entirely covered with tenting. Apparently he just didn't want anybody to see him physically, which, hey man, that's fair. If I was in that cat suit with a bum crack in it, I'd probably want to hide too. His reputation as a difficult Donnie might have something to do with Hollywood blacklisting him entirely, except for his recent show The Pentaverate, which was a show where he basically played half the cast because, yeah, he couldn't get anybody else to get on the show, I guess. It might be that, or it might be the Love Guru, who knows? Number 6. Bill Murray. Now, Bill Murray has had many public feuds with many co-stars over the years that would qualify him as an entry on this list. One of his more famous feuds was with Charlie's Angel co-star Lucy Liu, but I already covered that in part 1 of this list, so today I'm going to talk about his long-standing feud with his late Ghostbusters co-star Harold Ramis. Harold and Bill famously starred opposite of each other in the classic Ghostbusters series, but they had been working together before and after the project, with Harold acting as the director on a lot of projects starring Bill Murray. The moment he was outed as one of the meanest men on set was while filming Groundhog Day. According to cast and crew, Harold and Bill would regularly get into screaming matches over the way that a scene should be filmed or how a line should be said. According to Harold, who passed away in 2014, Bill would show up late to set, well past his call time. Following the film, the two did not speak to each other for decades. It wasn't until Harold was heading out the door that Bill decided to reconcile the friendship, but by then it was a little bit too late. Of course, in the years since, several co-stars, especially female ones, have come forward to call out his extreme temper and snappiness on set, but we could do a whole top 10 about things that Bill Murray has done. Number 5, Bruce Willis. Now, Kevin Smith is a director, actor, and an absolute geek in the best of ways. In 2010, he collaborated with Bruce Willis on an action comedy called Cop Out, a story about two cops who get sucked into wild action-packed shenanigans. I don't know, I've never seen the movie. According to Kevin Smith, his time on set as a director of the project was not good, and it was mostly due to his childhood hero Bruce Willis telling him to snap out of it every time that he would mention his admiration. He went on to claim that Bruce was difficult to work with on set in general, and that a lot of the time it just felt like he was messing up scenes on purpose to throw him off. Apparently, every time Kevin would try to, do his job and direct Bruce Willis, he would just kinda tell him that he had been working in the industry for 25 years and that there was nothing that Kevin could tell him he didn't already know. He then revealed on The Tonight Show with Jay Leno back in 2012 that Bruce had actually confronted him after filming one day and asked him if he wanted to take a swing. The situation escalated to the point that Bruce didn't appear for promotional events or photo shoots, meaning that he was photoshopped into most of the pictures that you see him with co-star Tracy Morgan, who Kevin claims is actually the only reason he didn't back out of the project. Since Willis was diagnosed with aphasia, the two have been able to patch things up, with Kevin apologizing for his petty complaints. Number 4, Ryan Gosling. The Notebook is considered to be one of the better romantic movies ever made in Hollywood. Oddly enough though, the on-screen couple didn't get along at all during their shoot. Turns out they would constantly fight on set, and they seemed to have completely opposite ideas on how several of the scenes should play out. Ryan Gosling especially was a little bit of a problem. One day in particular was pretty exciting for anyone who wasn't involved. All drama watchers were sipping their tea. Ryan called over the director and demanded that Rachel was replaced by another actress to read her lines. In front of 150 crew members, he claimed that Rachel just wasn't giving him anything to work with, and the two would constantly yell at each other. Their toxic on-set feud somehow morphed into a relationship that lasted for like 2 years, but anyone who worked on the set blames them for the constant schedule setbacks and creating just a terrible work environment overall. So, I don't know, he seems better now that he's been in Barbie. Number 3, William Shatner. This one is for all of you Trekkies out there. Live long and prosper. That's all I got. I'm not as geeky as one may think, but I'm well aware of this long-standing feud between William Shatner and his Star Trek co-star George Takei. This feud has lasted for over 50 years, and according to George, it boils down to William being a prima donna attention hog the entire time he was on set. Over the years, George has always been vocal about his opinion on his fellow Star Trek cast and crew. Most of the time he has nothing but nice things to say and claims to have made lifelong friends from the project, but there is, of course, one that he despises, and it's William Shatner, who was the bane of everyone's existence on set. He loved being the center of attention and was apparently very self-involved. He wanted everyone to know who he was. William actually responded to these claims, telling people that he believed that Star Trek co-stars were damaging his good name for publicity's sake. But why would people who've barely acted in 30 years suddenly want to bash you for fame and glory? I don't know if anyone has noticed or not, but William hasn't done much either in a while, other than, petition to go to space for real, so good for him. Number 2, Jamie Foxx. Jamie Foxx has been a huge star in the world of Hollywood over the years, working with several acclaimed directors in basically every genre, but like most actors, Jamie had to start somewhere. And that somewhere was in the film Any Given Sunday from 1999, alongside Al Pacino, Cameron Diaz, Dennis Quaid, and Mr. LL Cool J. Cool J and Jamie played teammates in the football-centric flick, and not only do their characters constantly fight on screen, but behind the scenes, they had an actual brawl that ended in the Miami County Police being called in. During one scene, the two were scripted to fight and filmed the first 2 takes as planned, but just, faking it. However, some offset beef made its way in front of the camera when Jamie struck Cool J for real, splitting his lip open, and an all-out beatdown took place, leaving Jamie unconscious and in the hospital. They had to stop production because they just weren't sure when Jamie would actually, come back to be able to film his scenes. When Fox did return to set, it was with a small crew of friends and his manager. Waiting to greet them was LL Cool J and half of Brooklyn, according to the director, who stated that the tension was only settled after the real-life football players that the characters were based on came onto set and took care of business. And at number 1, Sarah Jessica Parker. For this entry, I'm not allowed to say the title of the show that Sarah and her co-star Kim Cattrall were on, so I'll be referring to it as Schmecks and the City, okay? Take the schm and you know what, you'll figure it out. The Schmecks and the City series is remembered for its larger-than-life fashion and flings. But even better than the show itself was apparently the dramatic on-set feud between Sarah Jessica Parker and Kim Cattrall. There was merely speculation for a long time, but their feud was confirmed when Kim was left out of the HBO Max revival, and just like that. The feud reportedly stems from Sarah receiving a massive bonus when she was given an executive producer title in season 2. When the other girls found out, Kim attempted to negotiate a new salary. Apparently, the other cast members found that out and they thought it was petty and just basically shunned her on set, refusing to sit with her at lunch. According to Kim, she began to face hardships in her personal life and was having a difficult time coping. The feud was surface level, and as time went on, things got better from what we can tell.
At number 10, Julia Roberts. Julia Roberts seems like a nice person, and I'm sure on her off days she's lovely, but on set she's been known to be kind of a handful and has caused some drama with the people that she's worked with. Though she's often cast as nice and endearing characters, there is much more to Julia than meets the eye. Apparently, according to her co-stars and past crew members, she's a nightmare to work with. A specific time when Julia was known to be especially nightmarish was when she starred in the 1991 Spielberg film Hook, a Peter Pan film. While working on the film, Julia earned the nickname Tinkerhell as a play on her character Tinkerbell, combined with the production's perception of the actress. Apparently, during filming, she would show up to set late all the time, she would lock herself in her trailer for hours on end, she would treat people badly, and she would never apologize for her actions or behavior. She caused quite a lot of drama with the people she worked with because she just wouldn't cooperate. At number 9, Bill Murray. Bill Murray already has a bad reputation in Hollywood for his poor on-set behavior, so it's no surprise to me to find out that he's had some serious drama with one of his castmates on the set of Charlie's Angels. While filming the movie, Bill Murray was said to have antagonized actress Lucy Liu. When watching the film, you would think that they were all good friends and on good terms, but in reality it was quite the opposite. The film set was sort of a hostile work environment that caused Bill to take on a disliking towards Lucy. Turns out Bill would insult Lucy's talent and acting ability, and on one occasion even said, quote, "I get why you're here, you got talent, but what in the hell are you doing here? You can't act." Apparently the harassment and bullying got so bad at one point that Lucy tried throwing punches at Bill during a scene because his insults got so bad. This antagonizing went on for the entire duration of production, and Bill kept on berating Lucy about her presence on set and calling her unprofessional as well. This drama was so unnecessary. Before we continue talking about on-set drama, why not take a quick second to leave a like on this video if you're enjoying it so far, and while you're at it, consider subscribing to the channel to see more videos like this one. At number 8, Chevy Chase. Chevy Chase is known for being in National Lampoon and the show Community, but is also known around Hollywood as being kind of a jerk and starting drama with the people that he works with. There are a bunch of articles, books, and interviews of people talking about their experiences with the actor and how mean he can be. There are even stories in the book Live from New York that detail the times that Chase has been mean to staff, writers, interns, and other hosts. Will Ferrell and Bill Murray are among those who have taken a dislike to Chase because of the way he's treated others. Will Ferrell has said that he doesn't like Chevy because of the way he treats some of the female staff members. Bill Murray and Chevy Chase even got into a brawl backstage of SNL back in the day, where they said some pretty hurtful things to each other because they were kind of comedy rivals on the show. Chevy just doesn't get along with everyone, and he said that it's because fame went to his head, but something tells me that's not the only reason he starts drama. At number 7, Ryan Gosling. Ryan Gosling is one of Hollywood's most famous actors, but he also is someone who experienced getting fired because of on-set drama, and it first happened very early on in his career. Back in the 90s, Ryan was part of the Mickey Mouse Club alongside stars like Justin Timberlake, Christina Aguilera, and Britney Spears, but after some on-set on-set drama, Ryan got fired from Disney. Ryan didn't stick around too long on the show because in an interview from 2008, Ryan opened up about his 2 years on the Disney Channel where he revealed that things didn't work out well between him and the studio. The La La Land actor revealed that producers from the Disney Channel show thought that Ryan had a bit of an attitude problem and was seen as a bad influence on the other kids. The actor also went on to say that he was apparently considered to be such a menace to the other kids that the mothers of his co-stars went to the executives to complain about his behavior. The studio eventually decided that Ryan wasn't Disney material because of his behavior and he was soon let go. At number 6, Megan Fox. A director kind of counts like a co-star, right? I mean, they work together, so let's just go with it. Megan Fox has been in a few pretty successful films before being cast in the Transformers films, but after the success of this franchise, she was launched into fame. That is until things came crashing down after getting fired from her role and facing a lot of backlash because of it. When she was fired from Transformers, Michael Bay said that the decision came after she was a quote, nightmare to work with. What really happened is Megan made a comment about Michael Bay's behavior on set, commenting on how strict he was. On top of everything, when fellow director Steven Spielberg caught wind of these comments, he advised Bay to fire her, and that is exactly what happened. This drama caused Megan to lose her job and also gain a reputation of being hard to work with, which followed her for many years, so this drama really affected her a lot. Her career is slowly coming back to where it was before this drama went down. At number 5, Emma Roberts. Emma Roberts has had quite a few feuds with co-stars. She's had drama with Gabrielle Sidibe, Ariana Grande, and Evan Peters, but the biggest feud that she's had was with Lea Michele on the set of Scream Queens. According to sources, Emma Roberts and Lea Michele had one strong attribute in common, and that was the fact that they were both divas, and so while they were working together, they butt heads with each other quite often. Apparently, their fighting got so bad while working that during filming, actress Jamie Lee Curtis had to step in and mediate the hostile situation between Emma and Lea because she was just so fed up with their constant bickering while they were trying to work. It was also reported that the actresses would constantly have mean girl moments, making rude and catty comments towards each other almost daily. Rumors of this feuding between them were pretty common in entertainment news while Scream Queens was still in production, showing that things never really died down between the two actresses. It seemed like Emma just caused a heck of a lot of drama with a lot of people on set. At number 4, Lea Michele. Lea Michele was exposed last year for her Hollywood mean streak and for her terrible on-set behavior, as well as the drama that she caused with people on set. This all came out following a tweet from former Glee co-star Samantha Ware, where she let the world know how horrible it was to work with Lea. The actress is now described as quote, callous, rude, mean, and even a diva. But following Samantha's exposure of the Broadway star, other people have come forward with their own testimonies regarding Lea and her mean streak. There have been stories of Lea's microaggressions, but also stories of her spitting in craft service food that she doesn't like, refusing to work with people because they don't know her middle name, requesting reshoots because she didn't like her costume, disrespecting other castmates and having crew members apologize on her behalf, and so many other frustrating tidbits that really just showed how rude and entitled she's been known to be. It was never a dull moment on set, but not in a good way. At number 3, Bruce Willis. Bruce Willis has been really successful in his career, but it seems as though he's not all that great to be around on set. Though his films are often very well made, it all comes at a price that those who've worked alongside him have had to pay. Apparently, Bruce is a nightmare to work with as he's gotten into a number of conflicts with others on set, and they really just hate working with him. In the time before Die Hard launched his film career, Bruce found most of his success after working on the show Moonlighting alongside his co-star Sybil Shepherd. In 2005, Shepherd dished about her time working with Bruce, where she told sources that there came a point where her relationship with Bruce became volatile and they clashed a lot on set. There was reportedly constant bickering between the two of them, and it was just a toxic environment. But Sybil isn't the only one to say that they've clashed with Bruce while working together. Filmmaker Kevin Smith has also had troubles working with the actor while filming the 2010 film Cop Out. He told sources that though Bruce was his hero in past productions, that opinion went out the window, saying that working with Bruce was almost unbearable. When talking about their time together on set, Kevin said, quote, he turned out to be the unhappiest, most bitter, meanest, emo B-word I've ever met at any job I've held down, and mind you, I worked at Domino's Pizza. What an awful experience. End quote. At number 2, Shia LaBeouf. Shia LaBeouf has really been going through it in Hollywood. He kind of has a bad reputation now because of the conflicts he's been in, the latest of which got him fired from a movie. Because of his bad attitude and clashes on set, the actor was fired by Olivia Wilde from the upcoming film Don't Worry Darling. It was announced in late fall last year that Harry Styles would be replacing Shia in the film, and now we know that it was due to Shia's alleged bad behavior, as people have cited that Shia is, quote, not an easy guy to work with. It was alleged that there was some kind of conflict between between him and Olivia Wilde as well, and so because of that and the fact that other cast and crew members didn't like working with him, Shia was let go. Getting fired is always a negative, but in Hollywood, when your work involves relationships with others and having connections, having a bad experience that was enough to get you fired can ultimately burn that bridge and result in you having less and less connections in the industry, therefore having less and less opportunities to find work. Bottom line, starting drama at work is not good. And finally, at number 1, Mike Myers. Having things not go your way can certainly cause you to have a bad attitude about things, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you need to take your feelings out on others. When Mike Myers was filming the 2003 live-action version of The Cat in the Hat, that is exactly what he did. Because he was so cheesed that he had to do this movie, he started drama with just about everyone he worked with. After the success of Austin Powers, Mike was set to star in some more comedy films, but before that was all carried out, the actor and the studio got into some debates and there was some legal trouble and it caused some drama. Both sides ended up reaching an agreement and it obligated Mike to star in the Cat in the Hat movie. He never wanted to sign up for that and he really made it known how badly he did not want to be there, because according to people who worked with him on set during filming of the Cat in the Hat, Mike was very rude and dismissive and he refused to talk to anyone. He became a hermit and a diva apparently, and this whole experience and the subsequent film were all so bad that Dr. Seuss's widow said that she would never allow Hollywood to make another movie based on Seuss's books again. He really wanted everyone to feel the same displeasure he was feeling about the film, but that certainly wasn't fair to the other people who worked so hard to bring it to life.
Number 10. Bill Murray. Sony's first venture into the world of Charlie's Angels was a massive success, starring Cameron Diaz, Drew Barrymore, and Lucy Liu as the titular angels. The movie was filled with action, a bit of comedy, and one of the strangest performances ever delivered by Crispin Glover. Seriously, that guy needs some help. One interesting addition to the cast was the inclusion of Ghostbusters alumni Bill Murray as the man behind the mic in charge of the Angels, Bosley. Apparently the set was anything but a comedy after Bill found out that a scene was rewritten without his knowledge. In an interview with the news outlet Deadline, Lucy Liu spoke up about her time on set and the situation surrounding Bill Murray's outburst. Apparently Bill was away for a family event when a scene needed to be reshot for the movie, but instead of using a stand-in, it was decided that the scene could be filmed without Murray's character even being involved, so the scene went on without him. When he returned to find that the change was made while he was gone, he was furious. He reportedly shouted at half of the crew, including Lucy herself. At first she wasn't sure why he was aiming his comments at her. She's not the one who wrote the scene, she wasn't the director or anything. So she asked if Bill was talking to her, which sent him into a full-on meltdown. She decided to speak out on Bill's behavior on set, and Bill was ultimately written out of the sequel. Lucy is proud for speaking her mind despite being a relatively unknown actor at the time, and has always been glad that Bill's career seems to have suffered for it, because Lucy was just the first of many celebrities to comment on his behavior, but we'll save that for another time. Number 9. Dustin Hoffman. Dustin is a very easy man to spot. Not only is he a solid actor, but he has just a very specific face. You know, Mr. Megorium's Wonder Emporium, anyone? That's an old one. Despite his ability to play lovable and cheerful characters, he actually started out as somewhat of a villain in the world of Hollywood. On the second day of filming his more famous part in Kramer vs. Kramer, Dustin decided to improvise a scene where he strikes Meryl Streep across the face. Let me rephrase that. Dustin Hoffman thought it'd be a great idea to strike Meryl Streep. Mamma mia, that's not okay. Get it? She was in Mamma Mia. I'm so good at this. Not only was Meryl shocked by the move, but she recalled that Dustin was also trying to use a tactic on her called emotional recall, and was literally taunting her about her recently deceased partner John Cazale and his illness. Yay! Number 8. James Franco. Tyrese Gibson and James Franco starred opposite each other in a 2005 dramatic piece called Annapolis. The story follows Franco's character wanting to attend the titular Naval Academy and entering into a boxing tournament against some of the Navy's best and brightest. His main opponent is Tyrese Gibson. Throughout the majority of the filming, James and Tyrese would regularly practice their choreography for their final fight of the film. Now, method acting is one thing when you just pretend to be someone else all the time, but it's different when you're literally punching your co-stars for real. Instead of the normal choreography allowing actors to fake strike each other, Franco was throwing real punches without warning. Gibson tried to be civil at first and asked him to lighten up, but Franco ignored him and continued to just box his heart out. When asked about the incident in interviews, Franco defends himself by saying that he was aware that he made the set difficult all the time, and claimed to be so wrapped up in his role that he probably just wasn't as friendly as he could have been. Gibson, however, holds a massive grudge towards Franco, claiming that he'd never stepped foot in the same room as him ever again. So good news for Tyrese, James got cancelled and Fast 11 comes out next week. Number 7, Ryan Gosling. The Notebook is considered to be one of the greatest romantic movies ever made in Hollywood, but oddly enough, the on-screen couple did not get along at all during the shoot. They would constantly fight on set and seem to have completely opposite ideas on how several of the scenes should play out. One day in particular was pretty exciting for anyone who wasn't involved, drama watchers sipping their tea, as Ryan called over the director and demanded that Rachel McAdams be replaced by another actress to read her lines with him. In front of 150 crew members, he claimed that Rachel wasn't giving him anything to work with, and the two would constantly yell at each other on set. Their toxic on-set feud somehow morphed into a toxic relationship that lasted for 2 years. Anyone who worked on the set blames them for constant schedule setbacks and creating an overall difficult work environment. Number 6, Tom Hardy. Mad Max Fury Road is a forgotten gem in cinema history. It featured little to no CGI, despite having some insane visuals, and it also featured some pretty stellar performances from its cast, including Nicholas Hoult, Charlize Theron, and Tom Hardy. But Charlize and Tom played the main characters Furiosa and Max, and while their on-screen characters end up working together in the end, on set, pretty different vibe. Tom had a bad habit of showing up late all the time. Meanwhile, Charlize was a brand new mother who would be there on time every single day while her kids were forced to be taken care of by someone else. In a book about Mad Max Fury Road, the wild and true story of the creation of the film, the writer Kyle Buchanan shared an instance on set between Charlize and Tom. Everybody was there at 8 a.m. ready to shoot except for Tom Hardy. But to make a point, Charlize took her place and stayed there till Tom showed up 3 hours later. She didn't move a muscle, and according to the crew, she was beyond furious. When Tom finally showed up, she asked him how he could be so disrespectful and said that they should fine the CNX Tuesday $100,000 for every minute that he held her up, and the crew. She didn't say CNX Tuesday, but the word she did say set Tom off. He rushed up to her and pulled out the whole "what did you say to me" thing. Yeah, big tough guy, huh? He can't hear so good. Overall, Charlize felt very uncomfortable with Tom and had to have an assistant follow her around on set as a buffer between the two. When the shoot wrapped, the tension was gone and things seemed to have gotten better, but the difficult shoot combined with the stress is probably why there was never a Mad Max 2, which really hurts. Seriously, if you made it and you're watching this, make another one. Number 5, Vin Diesel. Dwayne Johnson and Vin Diesel first met on the set of the 5th Fast and Furious movie, Fast 5. They're really good with names. This was Vin Diesel's 5th movie, while it was Dwayne's first. Not just in the franchise, but in the acting world in general. He had been in small budget movies, but this was a big budget movie. At first, everything seemed to be okay with these guys on set. Fast 5 made a ton of money, and they asked Dwayne to return for 6 and 7. However, something changed in 2016 when, in a now deleted post, Dwayne called one of his fellow Fast 7 co-stars a candied bum. He didn't say bum, but we can't swear on the internet, so I'm a toddler today. He actually said a word that rhymes with grass. Rumors began to fly that this was more than likely referencing Vin Diesel. Rumors proven only a few weeks after the post was made. Following the premiere of Fate of the Furious, Johnson posted on Instagram thanking all of his fellow co-stars and cast members by name except for Vin Diesel. It was later confirmed by Fast and Furious co-star Michelle Rodriguez that there was a massive amount of tension on set between these guys. They were bros at first, but as time went on and the franchise evolved, so did their egos. They fought constantly over who should get more screen time, who should get more money, who was the real lead of the franchise. You know, toxic masculinity and all that. To keep both actors happy, Johnson was given a spin-off movie in which he co-starred as the lead with Jason Statham, and Vin Diesel was left right where he belongs with his family. Number 4, Janet Hubert. Will Smith got his big break in the acting world thanks to his successful time on the sitcom Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. The show followed Will as the titular prince, living with his wealthy family in Bel-Air, surrounded by cousins, uncles, and of course, Aunt Viv. In season 1, Aunt Viv was played by a woman named Janet Hubert Witten, but as a lot of people know, she was recasted after an on-set feud with Will Smith just went way too far. According to Will, Janet viewed him as an antagonist. She had been in the business for years when Will suddenly popped into her life and took lead of a show. She held a tinge of jealousy towards Will as he just walked into town, got the gig, and that's it, you know? Well, hey Janet, I'm sorry, but that's what happens when you're good at your job. She was trying to convince the producers of his show to give her character more screen time and allow her to breathe on camera, but they said no, because it's not the Aunt Viv show, okay? She fought back hard, but it was ultimately decided that she would be asked to sit out of the rest of the series and was replaced by Daphne Maxwell Reid, who is the real Aunt Viv, okay? We all know and love her. Number 3, Alyssa Milano. So, let's talk about the show Charmed for a second. This was a solid series that was on air for almost 10 years. The series followed three sisters that discover they're descendants of a line of good female witches and they're destined to fight against the forces of evil. Yeah, it was a very fun show. However, just because you play sisters on set doesn't mean that you're going to be close in real life. Rose McGowan and Alyssa Milano had a very public altercation that resulted in a little incident on set being shared with the world. Rose claimed that Alyssa threw a fit in front of the crew, yelling about not being paid enough to do the stuff that she was doing. Only she didn't say stuff. She called Alyssa's behavior appalling and claimed that she cried every time the show got renewed for another season because it just meant more time on a toxic set. Alyssa never shared her own comments on the situation, confirming what she was being accused of. Number 2, Richard Gere. Richard Gere is one of those actors that doesn't really act. Sometimes people just get hired for films because they have the face for it and the style. For Richard Gere, he did not have enough class and moxie to keep a handle on his role in the film Lords of the Flatbush. He was cast to star alongside Rocky himself, Sylvester Stallone, and according to Sly, these two did not get along. Their beef was strong and long-lasting throughout production, until it finally came to a head when one day Richard was just a little bit too into one scene and grabbed Sylvester aggressively by the collar. When Sly told him to lay off, he laid in instead. The scene was being filmed on Coney Island, and when the actors took a minute to take a break, they tried to break each other. Sly was eating a hot dog alone in his car. Sounds pretty peaceful, right? But suddenly Richard stormed in to join him with half of a chicken dripping in mustard. Despite Sly's warnings about the mustard, it dripped all over his pants. And in true Rocky fashion, he elbowed Richard in the face and threw him out of his car. The altercation resulted in Richard being fired from the project. Oh no, we have to decide between Richard Gere and Sylvester Stallone. I wonder how quick that decision was. Number 1, Jared Leto. Now, Jared Leto has always been a problematic figure in the world of Hollywood throughout most of his career. After first gaining notoriety for portraying the character of Lane Dixon alongside Dennis Quaid and Danny Glover, Leto quickly began building up his acting repertoire with roles in iconic movies like Mr. Nobody, Girl Interrupted, and he even took a turn as the Clown Prince of Darkness, the Joker, in 2016, which we don't like to talk about much. It's not a good memory. Jared has always taken method acting to the extreme, losing and gaining weight rapidly over and over again, and it was in the film as the Joker where we think he might have snapped. While playing this iconic Batman villain, Leto purposefully distanced himself from his fellow actors on set, and reports are that he sent the castmates used adult toys, live animals, and deceased animals as well. At one point during filming, Captain Boomerang actor Jai Courtney found a live snake in his trailer following along shoot day. The snake wasn't venomous or anything, but I think we can all agree that's a big nope. In recent years, he's claimed that any gifts that he sends to castmates are sent with the intent of joy and excitement, and should be received as such. But I don't know, exposing your fellow actors to your body fluids and real snakes? That doesn't sound very exciting. Number 10? Michael Keaton. Growing up, Michael Keaton was my Batman. The first two Tim Burton directed Batman movies are legendary, and I'm never going to look at Danny DeVito and not see the Penguin. Okay, it's just not gonna happen. One thing I actually never knew though was that Michael was once married to his Batman Returns co-star, Michelle Pfeiffer. In fact, Michael actually tried to get Michelle fired from the project after learning that she had been casted as not only a villain, but as his love interest as well. While the split before production was apparently amicable, it was still an uncomfortable situation for Michael to be in romantic scenes with someone that he had, well, already been romantic with off-screen. At the time, Michael was also trying to get back with an ex-girlfriend and felt that Michelle's presence might ruin his chances. Well, as we all know, he was unsuccessful in getting her fired, the project went great, and the movie was great. So the only bad thing that ever happened was DC telling Tim Burton that his Batman 3 ideas were stupid. Hey man, Robin Williams would have made an excellent Riddler, you jerks. Number 9, John Stamos. John Stamos is not just a fun name to say, but is the man to blame for Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen being absent from the Full House revival Fuller House. A lot of fans of the original series were well aware of why the Olsen twins never returned, but for those of you who don't know, John actually tried to get them fired from the original series when they were still young. And by young, I mean before they were even a full year old. From the very beginning of the sitcom, Stamos complained that Mary-Kate and Ashley were very difficult children to deal with. Apparently, if one wasn't crying and screaming, then the other one was. Oh no, a baby screaming and crying uncontrollably. Now that is a unique situation. His dislike for the Olsens forced the producers to bring in a new set of twins, and these are John's real complaints that prevented those twins from taking over permanently. Number 1, they had red hair. Number 2, in his words, they were unattractive babies, and he knew that he made a mistake. That is an awful thing to say about anyone at any age. After realizing that, the Olsens were just kids and that all the other ones were just too ugly to be on TV, that the Olsen twins would be brought back. What's funny is that the studio eventually wanted to fire Ashley Olsen only and keep Mary-Kate, but John actually stepped in and blocked that call. It seems that over the years that he turned into something like an uncle for the twins. For any Mary-Kate and Ashley fans who are just curious as to where they are, they took a break from acting permanently and have been making waves in the fashion industry. Pretty neat. Number 8. Tom Hanks. Who would have guessed the guy that is basically America's dad would be the cause of a man being fired from one of his film sets? Turner and Hooch was a wonderful buddy cop movie starring a young Tom Hanks and this big beautiful doggo named Beasley. When the film first started its production, Henry Winkler, aka the Fonz, aka Barry Zuckerkorn, was the director. As the years have gone by, Henry has always said the same thing about the project. He got along much better with Beasley than he did with Mr. Hanks. The set was plagued with creative differences between the men who would argue constantly on set. Henry's directing style just clashed with Tom's performance style time and time again. After only 13 days on set, there was an altercation between Tom and Henry that left Henry out of work, and Roger Spottiswoode stepped in to take his place. Number 7. Alec Baldwin. In 2013, Alec Baldwin was attached to star in a Broadway production of the show Orphans alongside Transformers alumni Shia LaBeouf. Now from day one of rehearsals, Shia and Baldwin were at each other's throats. Shia's problem was that Alec was never off script. This was something that he considered to be very unprofessional. Shia has since claimed that he was so nervous about the show that he made sure to memorize every single line he had before setting foot on stage on day one. His methods were not reciprocated by Alec, who just kind of showed up with a coffee in one hand and the script in the other one, planning to rehearse in the moment. Well, Shia was furious and he apparently yelled at Alec to learn his lines right then, right there. He said, "Whoa, he's a lead, what's the deal? Why aren't you better at this?" Well, after a couple of weeks and one particularly rough day where Shia blew up at Alec in front of a ton of cast and crew, Alec took 5 and he had a meeting with the producers. He said that if Shia wasn't let go, that he was going to quit the project. Producers caved and Shia was canned. In the tabloid, they claimed creative differences, but Shia later shared his side, clearly upset with being dropped as if he meant nothing to the show. Number 6. Seinfeld cast. Now for this entry, there is no one cast member that could be singled out as the individual who tried to get Heidi Swedberg, aka Susan, fired from the series. In the season 7 finale of Seinfeld, spoiler alert, Jason Alexander's character George Costanza is delivered the news that his wife Susan has suddenly passed away. George is thrilled as he's been wanting to leave Susan for a while now, but it turns out off screen, Jason was just as excited. So were Jerry Seinfeld, Michael Richards, and Julia Louis-Dreyfus, who made up the other 3 main cast members. According to Jason, he found it difficult to play off of Susan, claiming that there just wasn't a lot of chemistry between them. And as I said, this was a feeling that was shared with the entire cast. Julia Louis-Dreyfus said that it was impossible to have fun with her and her character, and that the producers were planning to write her off at some point in the near future. Well, the gripes of the cast were heard, and her character passes away from licking the glue on cheap wedding invitation envelopes that George insisted they purchase. It is very funny and it's a great way to get a character written off of a show, but it's just unfortunate for Heidi that the entire cast was like, she's not a vibe. Number 5. Jason Momoa. It's no secret that filming Aquaman and its sequel was a bit of a sensitive task. For starters, Amber Heard not only played Jason's love interest in the film, but she was also dealing with the Johnny Depp defamation trial, so a decision had to be made if she was going to continue being involved with DC or if they would just recast her entirely. Well, it turns out that that conundrum was not because of the trial, but it was actually just because of her terrible chemistry with Jason Momoa. Amber Heard has always felt jammed into the DC universe, but we could go on about that forever. Ultimately, the studio never went forward with firing Amber, and it was all thanks to the CEO of Tesla and her former lover, Elon Musk. Back in 2019, Elon had one of his litigators send this scorched earth letter to Warner Brothers, basically threatening to tear the house down if Amber was left out of the sequel. Warner Brothers caved and moved forward. Imagine being so geeky and so rich that you could tell an entire studio what to do for you. You would make millions of movies just for yourself. Despite keeping her job, Amber has continued to hurl allegations against her co-star Jason Momoa to this day, claiming that he was dressing like Johnny Depp on purpose on set to mess with her. But as I've mentioned in previous news breakdowns on that topic, Jason Momoa always looks like Johnny Depp. It's just what some people in Hollywood look like. Number 4, Sylvester Stallone. Richard Gere is one of those actors that doesn't really act. Sometimes people just get hired for films because they have the face for it or the style. For Richard, he did not have enough class and moxie to keep a handle on his role in the film Lords of the Flatbush. He was casted to star alongside Rocky himself, Sylvester Stallone, and according to Sly, these two did not get along. Their beef was strong and long-lasting through the entire production until it finally came to a head when one day Richard was just a little bit too into one scene and grabbed Sylvester aggressively by the collar. When Sly told him to lay off, he laid in instead. Now that scene was being filmed on Coney Island, so when the actors took a minute to take a break, they tried to, well, break each other. Sly was eating a hot dog alone in his car. Sounds very peaceful, but suddenly Richard stormed in to join him with like half of a chicken dripping in mustard apparently. Despite Sly's warning about mustard, like this whole thing started because of mustard. It dripped all over his pants, and in true Rocky fashion, he elbowed Richard in the face and threw him out of the car. The altercation resulted in Richard being fired from the project. Oh no, they had to decide between Richard Gere and Sylvester Stallone. I wonder how quick that meeting was. Number 3, Ryan Gosling. The Notebook is considered to be one of the greatest romantic movies ever made. Oddly enough though, the on-screen couple never got along during the shoot. They would fight with each other on set all the time and seemed to have completely opposite ideas on how basically everything should play out. One day in particular was pretty exciting for anyone who wasn't involved. Ryan called over the director and demanded that Rachel be replaced by another actress to read her lines with him. In front of 150 crew members, he claimed that Rachel just wasn't giving him anything to work with, and they would just constantly yell at each other between takes. Eventually, Ryan asked the director privately if it might be possible to restart the project with a new leading lady, and needless to say, he was laughed out of the room. As time went on, they finished the project, and the two actually dated for almost 2 years. The Notebook is now a classic, and Ryan Gosling is just Ken. Number 2, America Ferrera. In the early 2000s, Lindsay Lohan faced a ton of public scandals, but one that's not talked about often enough actually took place behind the scenes of a little show called Ugly Betty. Lohan was a guest star on the show in the 3rd season, playing Kimmy Keegan. Now, Kimmy was supposed to stick around for 6 total episodes, but that number was actually shrunken down to 4. The reason being was that her co-star and the lead of the show, America Ferrera, did not get along with Lindsay Lohan. According to America and several of the Ugly Betty crew, Lindsay would show up with an entourage of people, usually under the influence of herbs and spices, and the production crew had to repaint her dressing room when she left because it was just so bad in there. One crew member alleged that she would cut images of her own face out of magazines and tabloid articles like she was making a collage or something creepy like that. America claims that one scene took over 30 takes to get right because she flubbed her lines over and over again. Lindsay's team of buddies have been adamant that America had just too much power and was the sole reason that she was asked to leave the show. Unfortunately, if you do bad things and enough people know about it, hey, karma comes around. And at number 1, Lucy Liu. Sony's first foray into the world of Charlie's Angels was a massive success when it released, starring Cameron Diaz, Drew Barrymore, and Lucy Liu as the main angels. The movie was filled with action, a little bit of comedy, and one of the strangest performances ever delivered from Crispin Glover. Seriously, that guy needs help. One interesting addition to the cast was the inclusion of Ghostbusters alumni Bill Murray as the man behind the mic, Mr. Bosley. Apparently, the set was anything but a comedy after Bill found out there was a scene rewritten without his knowledge. In an interview with the news outlet Deadline, Lucy Liu spoke up about her time on set and the situation surrounding herself and Bill. Apparently, Bill was away for a family event when a scene needed to be reshot for the movie, but instead of using a stand-in, they realized they could just film the scene without Bill Murray in it. So it went on, and everything was fine. When he returned to find the change was made while he was gone, he was furious. He reportedly shouted at like half of the crew, including Lucy herself. At first, she wasn't sure why he was aiming so many of his comments directly at her. She didn't write the scene, she wasn't the director, but she asked if Bill was talking to her, which sent him into a full-blown meltdown. She decided to speak out on Bill's behavior on set, and he was ultimately written out of the sequel. Lucy is proud for speaking her mind, because at the time she was a relatively unknown actor and is glad that Bill's career seems to have suffered for it, because hey, Lucy was just the first of many people to comment on his behavior, but we'll leave that for another video. Number 10. Nicki Minaj and Mariah Carey. The feud between these two was swift and difficult to hide. In 2012, Mariah and Nicki were co-judges on the singing competition American Idol, and despite functioning on somewhat the same page, things actually went sour very fast. Over a span of just a few short weeks, American Idol became a desolate wasteland of insults, swear words, and a ton of threats. Yeah, things got pretty heated. According to people that worked on set of the show, Mariah was the one making fun of Nicki, saying mean little comments every time they sat next to each other. She was always saying that Nicki couldn't sing and felt that she should not be judging others on their ability. Some other people claim the opposite is the case, but hey, who really knows? I wasn't on the set. What we do know is that things got so heated that Nicki stormed off set one day, threatening to physically harm Mariah as she did. In 2013, they must have had enough of each other as they both decided to quit the show and go their separate ways. Number 9. Tommy Lee Jones and Jim Carrey. So let's get geeky for a second and talk about the movie Batman Forever. This movie was a failure from the moment the studio decided to fight Tim Burton on his vision. They recasted Michael Keaton, shifted the dark undertone, and turned the whole thing into a big live-action cartoon. Jim Carrey and Tommy Lee Jones played the villains of the piece, the Riddler and Two-Face respectively. For Tommy, the set was nothing but a pain in the neck. According to Tommy and several of the people on set, himself and Jim would argue with each other constantly. He just hated Jim's improv, his goofy attitude, and his overall energetic performance. Now, he literally called Jim a buffoon following the film's release. Despite working very well together on screen, off screen, they were counting down the hours until production wrapped. Number 8. Freddie Prinze Jr. and Kiefer Sutherland. Kiefer is a man known for his roles in movies like Lost Boys or Stand By Me, and he's built himself a nice little nest egg. For a long time, he was starring in crime drama 24. A lot of celebrities made small cameos and recurring roles on that show, but in 2010, Scooby-Doo alumni Freddie Prinze Jr., and yes, I know he's been in other stuff, but that's how I know him, was casted as Cole Ortiz. Despite the massive success of the show, the job actually left him scarred and admitting that he hated every second of it. According to Freddie, Kiefer is just an unprofessional dude that he hated working with. Continuing to say that he wasn't talking trash, this was just something that he would happily say to Kiefer's face. Apparently, a ton of his co-stars agreed that he makes filming a living nightmare. Following the end of his character's time on the show, he did slow down in acting, now limiting himself to voiceover and cameo roles, and the odd thing was that while there was some backing up to Freddie's story, there were a lot of people defending Sutherland, claiming the exact opposite things had happened to them. Some say that he's the most professional man in the world, and some say that he is someone you gotta watch out for. So I don't know, let's get some hashtags going. Hashtag Kiefer good, bad, see which one wins. Number 7. Chevy Chase and Donald Glover. Chevy Chase became a popular man after being involved with National Lampoon and Saturday Night Live way back in the day, but he returned to the mainstream when he starred as Pierce Hawthorne in Community. I genuinely love this show, and Chevy, it got better when he left. It would appear that his Community co-stars would agree with that statement. Around the middle of the show, Chevy started to complain about his co-stars, especially Donald Glover. It became apparent that he was just angry with him and was eventually fired for using racial slurs against him. According to Donald himself, aka Troy Barnes, Chevy would often make inappropriate jokes either aimed right at him or just as a general way to disrupt a scene. Joel McHale, who played Jeff Winger, told people that before he was fired, Chevy was complaining about his character's position on the show and how he was being portrayed. Well, the entire cast reminded him that there wasn't anything that actually was keeping him there, which might have been part of what set him off. His character was written out of the show in humiliating fashion, and I'm not going to spoil it for you. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. He feeds some geese for just a bit too long, if you know what I mean. Number 6. Wesley Snipes and Ryan Reynolds. Ryan Reynolds is known for a lot of things. One of his most iconic roles as an actor is of course the Merc with the Mouth, Deadpool himself. However, in 2008, Ryan was a part of a very different Marvel movie. As some might know, the original Marvel movie that started this whole live-action comics trend was Blade, starring Wesley Snipes as the titular vampire hunter. By the time the third film of that franchise rolled around, Wesley Snipes was actually just done with working working on set. He hated the way the franchise was turning out, and all of his creative suggestions were very quickly shut down. His main problem was the fact that Blade Trinity was written as a straight-up comedy movie when the previous entries were more dark and action-packed, filled with gore and some pretty stellar fight sequences. So when Van Wilder was casted to be his co-star, he kinda gave up. He famously refused to film several scenes unless he was allowed to keep his shades on. Apparently he was just micro-napping during takes because he just didn't care anymore. Ryan Reynolds played a big part in his difficulty enjoying the film. Apparently Reynolds just made it his mission to make Wesley snap. He'd constantly do bits, push things too far, make stuff up on the set. At the end of the day, Blade Trinity ended up burying the franchise, and it was one of the most chaotic and toxic film sets probably ever. Number 5. Tom Hardy and Charlize Theron. Mad Max Fury Road is a wonderful film in cinema history. It featured like no CGI despite having some incredible visuals, and it also had some pretty stellar performances from its cast, including Nicholas Hoult, Charlize Theron, and Tom Hardy. Charlize and Tom played the main characters, Furiosa and Max. While their on-screen characters end up working together in the end, on set it was just very different. Tom had a bit of a bad habit for showing up late, basically all the time. Meanwhile, Charlize was a brand new mother who would be on time every day while her kids were forced to be taken care of by someone else. In a book called Red, Sweat and Chrome, The Wild and True Story of Mad Max, writer Kyle Buchanan shared an instance on set between Charlize and Tom. Everyone was on set, 8 a.m., ready to go, except for Tom. But to make a point, Charlize took her place and stayed there for 3 hours until Tom finally showed up. She didn't move a muscle, and according to the crew, she was beyond furious. When Tom finally showed up, she asked him how he could be so disrespectful. They said that they should fine this See You Next Tuesday $100,000 for every minute that he held up the crew. She didn't say see you next Tuesday, but the word she did say set Tom off. He rushed up to her and pulled out the whole "what did you just say to me" thing, because he's a big tough guy and he can't hear well. Overall, Charlize felt pretty threatened by Tom and had to have an assistant follow her around on set as a buffer between the two, and I found out that following the film they actually apologized, mended things up, and Tom realized that he was a bit intense on set, which is to say the least. Number 4. The Rock and Vin Diesel. Dwayne and Vin first met on the set of the 5th Fast and Furious movie. This was Vin Diesel's 5th movie while it was Dwayne's first, not just in a franchise, but in the acting world in general. At first, everything was okay with these guys on set. Fast 5 was pretty good, it made a lot of money, and they asked Dwayne to come back for 2 more movies. However, something changed. In 2016, in a now deleted post, he called out one of his fellow Fast 7 co-stars a candy. He actually said a word that rhymes with grass. Rumors started to fly that he was more than likely referencing Vin Diesel. Rumors that were proven true only a week after that post was made. Following the premiere of Fate of the Furious, Johnson posted to Instagram thanking all of his fellow cast and crew, but he left Vin Diesel out of that thank you. It was later confirmed by Fast and Furious co-star Michelle Rodriguez that there was a massive amount of tension on the set of the film. They were buddies at first, but as time went on and the franchise evolved, so did their egos. They fought constantly over who should receive more screen time, who the real lead of the franchise was, all that fun toxic masculinity. To keep both actors happy, Johnson was given a spin-off in which he co-starred with Jason Statham, and Vin Diesel was left right where he belongs with his family, probably making Fast 21 right now. Number 3. Jennifer Grey and Patrick Swayze. Jen and Patrick have starred in a few movies together, most of which were made in the 1980s and are still talked about to this day. Before starring together in the classic 1987 flick Dirty Dancing, they were featured in the film Red Dawn. According to Jennifer, the set was a nightmare for her. While their characters were okay on screen, off screen, Pat was apparently pulling pranks on crew and cast left and right. She said that he was a very alpha individual and acted a lot like a socially unaware jock. She told the director that the things that he was doing just made her uncomfortable and it was just a bit too much. Following Red Dawn, they parted ways for a while but got back together for Dirty Dancing, something that actually almost didn't happen. Jennifer screen tested with Patrick and knew that there was something there, but that she just wasn't into the idea of working with this guy one-on-one. During the audition process, Patrick took Jennifer aside and with tears in his eyes, he apologized for his actions, telling her that this film could only work if they were on the same page. According to Jennifer, the moment following their interaction was when he lifted her up into the air for the first time, and that was it. Nobody else could have been in this movie. There is actually a sequel to the original film in the works, but no current release date is public. Number 2. Rachel McAdams and Ryan Gosling. The Notebook is of course considered to be one of the best romantic movies ever made. Oddly enough, this on-screen couple actually did not get along at all while they were filming. They'd constantly fight on set and had completely different ideas on how most of the scenes should play out. One day in particular was pretty exciting for anyone not involved. Ryan called over the director and demanded that Rachel be replaced by another actress because the way she was reading her lines just didn't work for him. In front of 150 crew members, he was like, "Rachel isn't giving me anything, get her out of here!" The two would constantly yell on set, and that was probably one of the worst days. Their toxic on-set feud somehow morphed into a relationship. They were together for like 2 years, and anyone who worked on the set blames them for constant schedule setbacks and just making an overall bad work environment. And at number 1, Janet Hubert and Will Smith. Will Smith got his big break in the acting world thanks to the success of The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, a show that was fantastic and followed Will as the titular prince living with his family in Bel-Air, surrounded by cousins, uncles, and Aunt Viv. In season 1, Aunt Viv was played by a woman named Janet Hubert Whitten, but as a lot of people know, she was recasted because an on-set feud with Will just went way too far. According to Will, Janet just saw him as a bad guy, she had been in the business for years when Will suddenly popped into her life. She held a lot of jealousy towards him because he just kind of walked into town and got a job, which is what happens when you're good at acting, I guess. She was trying to convince the producers of the show to give her character more screen time and let her breathe, but of course they said no because it's not the Aunt Viv show. She fought back hard, but it was ultimately decided that she would be asked to sit out for the rest of the series, and she got replaced by Daphne Maxwell Reid, who is the legendary Aunt Viv that we all know and love. Number 10, Leah Remini. Morning talk shows seem to have a new host popping in and out every season. Shows like The View and The Talk are known for having a revolving door policy when it comes to their hosts. For one reason or another, many hosts have been fired over the years, from on-screen altercations to backstage drama. For King of Queens alumni Leah Remini, she was fired due to an issue stemming from fellow host Sharon Osbourne. Remini premiered in season 1 of the show, demonstrating blunt honesty and a certain laid-back style of conversation. According to Leah, Sharon Osbourne did not like that at all. Not only was Leah fired after the first season, but her fellow co-host Holly Robinson Pete was also let go for little to no reason. However, Remini posted on her Twitter page calling Sharon out for having too much power on the show, alleging that she knew Sharon had a hand in herself and Holly being let go from the program. Leah claimed that herself and Holly were just too street for Sharon's liking. They weren't funny enough or awkward enough to make good TV. Sharon has denied those allegations to this day, and no one has spoken to each other in person since the firing. Number 9, Shannen Doherty. Unfortunately for Shannen, she gained quite the reputation in Hollywood for being fired due to an issue with her co-star. She may or may not be making another appearance on this list. I guess you'll just have to stick around and find out. For the first entry though, we're looking back to a very popular series, teen drama 90210. The series following the lives of the Walsh family as they move from Minneapolis to Beverly Hills. Doherty played the character Brenda Walsh, with her character eventually befriending several students at Beverly Hills High, including Donna Martin, played by Tori Spelling. The series was a hit after its initial season, however, with increased popularity came massive ego boosts. Doherty and Spelling started clashing on set all of the time, adding additional drama to the production team that they really did not need. Considering Tori's father, Aaron Spelling, was the producer on the show, it's pretty simple to piece together what happened. Doherty claims that she was officially let go for having a haircut that messed up the continuity of the show, but a wig could have fixed that, so you better believe Tori Spelling told her papa to boot her from the series. Number 8, Lindsay Lohan. In the early 2000s, Lindsay Lohan faced a ton of public scandals, but one that's not talked about often enough actually took place behind the scenes of a TV show called Ugly Betty. Lohan was a guest star on the show in the 3rd season, playing Kimmy Keegan. Kimmy was supposed to stick around for 6 total episodes, but eventually that number was shrunken down to 4, the reason being that her co-star and the lead of the show, America Ferrera, just did not get along with Lindsay on set. According to America, and actually quite a few of the Ugly Betty crew, Lindsay would show up with an entourage of people and usually under the influence of herbs and spices, and the production crew had to literally repaint her dressing room when she left because it was so messed up. One crew member alleged that she would cut images of of her own face out of magazines and tabloid articles like she were making a collage or something. That sounds a little made up, but not out of the realm of possibility. America claims that one scene took over 30 takes to get right because they just kept flubbing their lines. Lindsay's team of buddies have been adamant that America had too much power and was the sole reason that she was asked to leave the show. Unfortunately, if you do bad things and enough people know about it, karma just kinda comes back around. Number 7. Selma Blair. It's funny that this entry involves Charlie Sheen getting a woman fired when he himself has been fired from several projects and for a few reasons. After being fired from 2.5 Men, Sheen returned to the acting world headlining his own show called Anger Management. It premiered in 2012 with the cast featuring Hellboy alumni Selma Blair, playing his colleague and friend with benefits on the show. However, Sheen's terrible behavior continued to haunt him from his 2.5 Men days. Blair was very vocal on her problems with Charlie, especially his messy work ethic. Charlie heard about this and he was having none of it. He threatened to quit the show if Blair was going to remain a part of the cast. Sheen got his way and Blair was let go after starring in just 54 episodes. The show didn't last long though. Who would have guessed that a messy actor being the lead was a bad idea? The show was ultimately cancelled in 2014. Number 6. Aaron Hayes. The King of Queens was arguably the peak of Kevin James and his comedy. For 9 seasons, people tuned in to see Kevin and his on-screen wife, Leah Remini, deliver entertaining banter and genuinely memorable moments as their chemistry together was electric. Kevin made another move into the world of sitcoms in 2016 when the show Kevin Can't Wait premiered. Another family-style sitcom, only this time Kevin was paired with actress Aaron Hayes. While she was not a bad actor in the slightest, it was a special guest appearance from Leah Remini that sealed her fate. She appeared in the season 1 finale and their chemistry was still so strong that it was announced that Hayes' character would be written off the show and literally had her character tragically pass away. At the same time, Remini was announced as a new series regular beginning in season 2. Though the show cited that firing Aaron was purely a creative choice and in no way was reflected in her abilities as a performer, the firing then sudden hiring of his co-star from the past is just a little bit of a coincidence. Just a little bit. Aaron has never given a reason to believe that the studio was lying and has continued to have a pretty solid career, but luckily for her, season 2 tanked and the show was ultimately cancelled in 2018. Number 5. Bruce Willis. Before Bruce quit the acting business for good, he was part of some of the best action films of all time. The Try Hard series, The Fifth Element, and of course the first 2 Expendables movies. The Expendables is a stellar action series that sees Hollywood's most legendary leading men come together in one epic showdown. The first film was written and directed by Rocky himself, Sylvester Stallone, and he called in all of the favors. The cast included Jet Li, Jason Statham, Dolph Lundgren, and so many more, including Bruce Willis. Unfortunately, he was fired from the 3rd film in the franchise following a dispute with Sylvester involving his contract. Before the truth broke, Sylvester tweeted that he had great news, Bruce Willis was out and Harrison Ford was in for Expendables 3. And a few minutes later, he followed it up by simply writing greedy and lazy, a sure formula for career failure. And it was pretty obvious that something went down behind the scenes, and it was rumored that Willis had asked for over $1 million per day to film the 3rd movie. Despite their off-screen argument and Bruce's recasting, the two were able to reconnect and squash their beef for good. Number 4. Stacey Dash. While a ton of firing stories end with allegations, the situation between Lisa Ray McCoy and Stacey Dash is actually pretty straightforward. McCoy had Dash fired from their show. That's it. During the first season of the VH1 series Single Ladies, the 2 actresses clashed on basically everything, which led to McCoy taking action. She admitted to having a hand in getting her co-star fired before the start of the 2nd season. In an interview with Vibe, she stated that in Hollywood she learned to be a boss. She had to say to Stacey, "Get your mother flippin' finger out of my face," which was the final breaking point. For the 2nd season of the show, a replacement was brought in for Miss Dash, who went on to star in some other stuff. Number 3, Rose McGowan. So let's talk about the show Charmed for a second. It was a solid series that was on air for almost 10 years. The series followed 3 sisters that discover they are descendants of a line of female witches and are destined to fight against the forces of evil. It was a fun show, however, just because you play sisters on set doesn't mean that you're going to be close in real life. Rose McGowan and Alyssa Milano had a very public altercation that resulted in a little incident on set being shared with the entire world. Rose claimed that Alyssa threw a fit in front of the crew, yelling that they didn't pay her enough to do the things she was doing, and only she didn't say the thing she was doing, she said a swear word. She called Alyssa's behavior appalling and claimed that she cried every time the show would get renewed for another season because it just meant more time on a toxic set with Alyssa. Alyssa never shared her own comments on the situation, basically confirming what she was being accused of. Number 2, Bill Murray. Sony's big first move into the world of Charlie's Angels was actually fantastic. The first round of films starred Cameron Diaz, Drew Barrymore, and Lucy Liu as the titular angels. They were filled with action, a little bit of comedy, and just one of the strangest performances ever delivered from Crispin Glover. I mean, one of. That dude does a lot of weird stuff. One interesting addition to the cast was the inclusion of Ghostbusters alumni Bill Murray as Bosley, their boss. Apparently the set was anything but a comedy though, after Bill found out that a scene was rewritten while he was away. In an interview with the news outlet Deadline, Lucy Liu spoke up about her time on set and the situation with Bill. Apparently Bill was away for a family event when a scene needed to be refilmed. Instead of using a stand-in, it was decided that the scene could be filmed without Murray's character even being involved, so it went on without him. When he returned to find that the changes were made while he was gone, he was furious and just shouted at everyone, including Lucy. At first, she wasn't sure why he was aiming his comments at her. She didn't do anything, she didn't write it, right? She asked if Bill was specifically speaking to her, and apparently that just set him off. She decided to speak out on Bill's behavior on set, and he was ultimately written out of the sequel. Lucy is awesome for speaking her mind despite being a relatively unknown actor at the time, and so far she seems pretty glad that Bill's career is suffering for it, because Lucy was just the first of many celebrities to comment on his behavior, but we'll talk about that another time. Number 1, Janet Hubert. Will Smith got his big break in the acting world thanks to his time on Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. The show followed him as the titular prince living with his wealthy family in Bel-Air, surrounded by cousins, uncles, and Aunt Viv. In season 1, Aunt Viv was played by a woman named Janet Hubert Witten, but as a lot of people know, in season 2 she was recasted after an on-set feud with Will went a bit too far. According to Will, Janet just viewed him as an antagonist in her life. She had been in a business for years when suddenly Will Smith popped in. She held this tinge of jealousy towards him because he just kinda came to town, got a job, and boom, that was it. Well, hey, that's what happens when you're good at your job, right? She was trying to convince the producers to give her character more time and allow her to breathe, but they said no, cause it's not the Aunt Viv show, it's the Fresh Prince show. She fought back hard, but it was ultimately decided that she was gonna be asked to sit out of the rest of the series and be replaced by Daphne Maxwell Reid, who we all know and love as the real Aunt Viv.
Number 1, we have Jared Leto. Leto is an actor known to be method. And if you don't know what method acting means, it is a technique or type of acting in which an actor aspires to encourage sincere and emotionally expressive performances by fully inhabiting the role of the character. So basically, aka never breaking character on or off set. Jared Leto stayed completely in character as the Joker and sent his castmates disturbing gifts, and his co-stars had some things to say about it. After he sent Viola Davis a box of bullets, she almost had her pepper spray out. She told E! News, "It was a little worrisome, it made you a little bit nervous, and I'm pretty tough. You know, I got into a few fights when I was growing up, but it scared me a little bit." But it doesn't stop there. Viola also said Jared introduced himself to the cast by sending them a dead pig and sent Margot Robbie, who is playing Harley Quinn, a black rat in a box in which Margot kept as a pet. Next on the list we have Jennifer Aniston. Known as the good girl in Hollywood, Jennifer Aniston seems like she would not hurt a fly. Well, that all changed when Jay Moore, her co-star in 1997's Picture Perfect, said that his most awkward interaction with a female co-star was, quote, being on the set of a movie where the leading woman was unhappy with his presence and made it clear from day one. Although he never named any names, this was the only movie that fit the description. Maybe he's too scared Aniston's legal team will get involved if he speaks up. He also said, I hadn't done many movies, and even though they screen tested some pretty famous guys, I somehow sneaked into the leading role. The actress said, "No way, you've got to be kidding me," loudly, between takes, to other actors on set. I would literally go to my mom's house and cry. Next up, we have Bill Murray. Bill has been in the news for a while now for accusations made against him, but this particular accusation is from the year 2000, while Bill was filming Charlie's Angels. His co-star Lucy Liu had some negative things to say about him, telling media outlets that Bill hurled insults at her while rehearsing a scene. While Liu didn't specify what Murray said to her during rehearsal, she confirmed reports that the actor started, quote, "hurling insults at me after learning of new scene rewrites." In the moment, the actress had difficulty processing what was happening. I was like, wow, he seems like he's looking straight at me. I couldn't believe that his comments could be towards me, because what do I have to do with anything majorly important at the time? I say, "I'm sorry, are you talking to me?" And clearly he was, because then it started to become a one-on-one communication. From Liu's perspective, some of the language Murray used was, quote, "inexcusable and unacceptable." She therefore decided to speak up in spite of the fact that she was one of the lesser known actors on set. "I stood up for myself, and I do not regret it," she said, "because no matter how low on the totem pole you may be, or wherever you came from, there's no need to condescend or to put other people down." Next up, we have Miss Jennifer Lopez. Jane Fonda called out her monster-in-law co-star Jennifer Lopez for injuring her on set. On the Drew Barrymore show, she said, "The thing that comes to mind right away is that we have a slapping scene. I slap her, she slaps me." Jennifer, as per Jennifer, she had this enormous diamond ring. When she slapped me, it cut open across my eyebrow. And you know, she's never apologized, she concluded. But Jane Fonda isn't the only one who has some things to say about J-Lo. Last year, a viral TikTok trend where people told their J-Lo horror stories went viral, and some of the stories are crazy. One user said, "I served at a restaurant where J-Lo and Ben Affleck were eating. At the end of the meal, Ben put a $100 bill down as a tip for the waitress. As Jennifer was just about to leave, she grabbed the $100 bill and replaced it with $5. Yikes. Next up, we have Alyssa Milano. Alyssa Milano has been exposed by her Charmed co-star Rose McGowan for being toxic on set. During a Twitter spat with her former Charmed co-star, she tweeted, "You threw a fit in front of the crew, yelling, 'They don't pay me enough to do this.' Appalling behavior on the daily. I cried every time we got renewed because you made that set toxic AF." She also shared an interview clip where she told Nightline, "I don't like Alyssa because I think she's a lie." Responding in a statement to E! News, Alyssa Milano said, hurt people, commenting any further does not align with my wellness plan." Next up, we have Gene Kelly. Gene is one of the most famous actors and dancers from the 1950s, and his co-star of Singing in the Rain had some things to say about him. In her 2013 memoir, Unsinkable, Debbie Reynolds wrote that her Singing in the Rain co-star / director Gene Kelly was a, quote, "cruel taskmaster." She said, "He came to rehearsals and criticized everything I did and never gave me a word of encouragement." She also alleged that he made unwanted advances towards her during their first kiss scene, writing, "The camera closed in, Gene took me tightly in his arms and shoved his tongue down my throat. Ew, what was that?" I screeched. Breaking free of his grasp and spitting, I ran around frantic, yelling for some Coca-Cola to cleanse my mouth. It was the early 1950s and I was an innocent kid who had never been French kissed before. I was stunned that this 39-year-old man would do this to me. Gene reportedly once said, "I wasn't very nice to Debbie. I'm surprised she still speaks to me." Next up, we have Lea Michele. The Glee star has been in the news lately for her apparent horrible behavior on set and off set. Replying to a tweet Lea Michele made about the Black Lives Matter movement, Glee co-star Samantha Marie Ware wrote, "Remember when you made my first television gig a living hell? 'Cause I'll never forget. I believe you told everybody that if you had the opportunity, you would poo in my wig." Amongst other traumatic microaggressions that made me question a career in Hollywood. Another co-star, Heather Morris, also had some things to say on Twitter. Was she unpleasant to work with? Very much so. For Lea to treat others with the disrespect that she did for as long as she did, I believe she should be called out. And finally, Dabbier Snell, who appeared on Glee in 2014, also recounted rude behavior from Lea Michele on set. He tweeted, "Girl, you wouldn't let me sit at the table with the other cast members because I didn't belong there. F you, Lea," in all caps. Our next celebrity is Jamie Lynn Spears. Britney's little sister seems to have caused some trouble on the set of Nickelodeon's Zoey 101. Alexa Nicholas opened up in 2019 about Jamie Lynn Spears and other Zoey 101 cast members allegedly bullying her on the set of the teen show. Nicholas was notably written off the show after season 2. In addition to claims of bullying tactics like exclusion and mocking, Nicholas also revealed in 2022 that she was once lured into a room with Jamie Lynn and her sister Britney Spears under false pretenses, deliberately separated from her mother. Britney Spears reportedly screamed at Nicholas and threatened her future in Hollywood. Nicholas revealed that Britney has apologized since and called her an amazing person, noting the stress 8 months pregnant Britney was under at the time and saying that she felt Britney had been manipulated by her sister Jamie Lynn. After Nicholas's interview, Britney publicly apologized, writing on Twitter that Jamie Lynn had told her she was being bullied and that my sister was literally like my daughter growing up, so I apologize for my ignorance for yelling at you when I obviously had no idea what was really going on. Kiefer Sutherland is the next celebrity on our list, and he has some serious allegations made against him. Let's get into it. After joining the show 24, Freddie Prinze Jr. was vocal about how much he disliked the show's lead actor, and really, his entire time on the program. "I did 24 and it was terrible. I hated every moment of it," he told ABC News. "Kiefer was the most unprofessional dude in the entire world. That's not me talking trash, I'd say it to his face. I think everybody that's worked with him has said that." Prinze also took a break from acting after his stint on 24, saying that the experience made him want to, quote, "quit the business." Rebel Wilson recently opened up about, quote, "awful and disgusting advances from a male co-star," though she didn't name who. "He called me into a room and pulled down his pants," she revealed, saying the co-star then asked her to perform a very vulnerable act. Afraid of retaliation and wanting to be professional, Wilson stayed on the project, though she said, "Definitely amongst industry circles, I made sure people knew what happened." She had also separately revealed that a male co-star in a position of power asked me to go into a room with him, all whilst his male friends tried to film the incident on their iPhones and laughed. "I repeatedly said no and eventually got out of the room."